House fires, you see them in the news. Property destroyed, lives lost. In the U.S., fire departments respond to a home fire on average every 86 seconds. And in those fires, a fire death is reported every 2 hours, according to statistics by the National Fire Protection Association. Seniors are at a greater risk of injury and death in a fire more than any other age group. Fire awareness and home safety for seniors is the key. Home electrical fires, space heater safety, smoke detectors, and even a fire escape plan all can make a difference in the life and death of an older person. Today on the Caregiving Doctor Show, fire safety, how to be safe, caring for your older adults, caring for your senior citizens. That's today on the Caregiving Doctor Show. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Caregiving Doctor Show today. I'm your host, Dr. Clarissa Fell-Smith, and we have a great show planned today on the Caregiving Doctor Show. My guest is Captain Brian Harrell. He is a public education and public information officer right here in Birmingham, Alabama with Birmingham Fire and Rescue. And don't go away, because this information today is hopefully going to save your life and the lives of your loved ones, especially if you are a caregiver or you're taking care of someone who is sick at home and who may not be able to get out. We're talking about fire prevention. We're talking about home safety. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about who are you, why you became a fireman, and what do you do, and what do you love about what you do?
Okay, my name is Captain Brian Harrell. As you know, I became a fireman 20 years ago. I was in school, actually pre-med, and what happened was I just had a love for firefighting. You know, nobody came around my school district and told me about firefighting, so one of the guys at UAB told me about fighting fire, so I went down there and took the test, and the rest is history. 20
years, I bet you see a lot of things.
I've seen a lot, done a lot, but I love helping people. That's the primary reason for doing my job, is helping people.
Give me just a scenario of a case that someone may have died in a fire or something that could have been prevented in the home.
Well, one, I guess it's more of a success story. You know, we had a fire one time with an elderly person, and they told us she was gone. You know, her car was gone, so we came into the house, put it out, and we saw her actually lying in bed, and I really thought she was deceased. But when we shook her, she arose, you know, and she said that she didn't have any smoke alarms, nothing woke her up, so we were able to get her out of the house, get her to the hospital to get treated, and she survived.
What's the number one fire? What's the second? What's the third reason for fires in the home?
Well, the number one fire around the whole United States right now is unattended cooking fires. People put things on the stove, they try to fry, and then they just leave the house, you know, and then we come in later on and the house is on fire. Number two would probably be smoking. Fall asleep at night and drop the cigarette butts into the mattresses. Very fatal. Number three, probably electrical fires. You know, people sometimes don't get their house checked, older houses, and they plug stuff in and they have electrical fires. And number four, probably the final big fires we see, especially around the winter time, homeless people, vagrants coming in houses, and they burn up the house.
Can most fires be prevented?
Most fires can be prevented, especially the unattended cooking fires. You know, it's kind of disheartening seeing, you know, all the information I put out and people still burn their kitchens down.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
You know, I'm a public education officer, so I go around everywhere, do a lot of interviews and give people cooking tips. You know, unattended cooking fires, like I said, the number one cause of fire. So people see that and they still come home late at night, they cook. I like to tell people, why not have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? You know, why not have a can of Viennas, you know, a bowl of cereal? If you coming home late at night after a hard day's work, you're on medication, like a lot of elderly people take medication to make them sleep. Why not, you know, make a sandwich? You know, so a lot of people still come home and cook. Hot dogs. Every fireman that's been on any length of time know the smell of burned hot dogs. Hot dogs are probably, I like to make the joke, you can send a hot dog probably to a war zone and use it as an incendiary device, because a hot dog will explode. A lot of people put them on to boil and then they go lay down and go to sleep. You know, and then we come in the house and hot dogs, you know, the water boils out and it's fire.
Many of our older people live in older homes. Give me just some general things, because we're going to eventually walk through on this show and show the audience what kind of things we should and shouldn't be doing in the home. But in general, an older home, what kind of things are you seeing as you're going into the homes?
Well, a lot of times, older homes, the number one thing around we see is like what's sitting behind us, a fireplace. You know, this place right here, it's actually, you have the gas logs, but you know, it's probably been converted. But a lot of the older homes have fireplaces. A lot of people think, okay, I can just come in here and cut this fireplace on. But a lot of people don't realize that you need to have your chimney inspected, your fireplace inspected. You know, the old school chimney sweeps, they still work. You know, a lot of people think you can just burn the little chimney cleaning logs. That's not going to work, because a lot of times, you know, it's a structural issue, and we have a lot of fires with older homes with fireplaces. Second thing is the electrical, the wiring. You know, a lot of the older homes don't meet the new codes for its wiring. You know, so you want to make sure that you have a qualified electrician come by and check your home. Third thing, hot water heaters. You know, we have had older hot water heaters to not really a fire hazard, but a actual, you know, gas hot water heater. You know, you had a pilot lid, and we have had homes to actually explode, blow up. I've seen that happen 2 or 3 times in my career. So you want to make sure the pilot is lit. And then your appliances in general. Some of the older homes have the older appliances in the kitchen. You want to make sure your appliances are updated.
Talk about smoke detectors.
Well, smoke alarms save lives. You know, that's what we like to say. Smoke alarms act as your watchdog. You know, when you know, if you ever have a dog, an outside dog, you know, when you hear that dog barking, you're gonna look out the window and say, you know, it's, you know, somebody out there. The same thing smoke alarms do. They're really meant for when you're sleeping. And when you're sleeping and something burns or is smoldering, if something burns, you know, and you're sleeping, it's gonna make you stay asleep. The carbon monoxide is gonna make you stay asleep. Okay. So you wanna make sure that smoke alarm's there, and it's almost like a watchdog. It's barking, it's ringing and saying, you know, get up, get out the house. So we suggest having a smoke alarm outside of every living area.
These smoke alarms are free? Are they free? I mean, will the fire department come out and install it?
In some areas, the fire departments give them out free. You know, I know in the city of Birmingham, we had a grant, and you know, right now we got to get another grant to get some more smoke alarms. But the Red Cross has a program going on nationally.
Can you talk a second about safety and when you're trying to get out of the home, burglar bars, locks on the doors, security doors? And
well, burglar bars are a big issue. You know, a lot, especially our seniors, like to have burglar bars to stay safe, but they can cause a hazard when you're trying to get out of a house. You know, we suggest that you have safety latch burglar bars on your windows. It's just a latch from the inside. In case of a fire, you can just pull them and the bars will pop off. Or if you have a lock mechanism, that you have a key right next to the burglar bar, especially with your burglar bar doors. You want to make sure that you have a key that's even inside the burglar bar lock, or it's right hanging by the door, because in a time of emergency, I can't tell you how many times we've been in house fires and we find the person laying right by the door. You know, they couldn't make it out the burglar bar, so they're laying by the door and they're deceased.
As an occupational therapist, I used to go into the homes, and one of the classic things I would see is cords running everywhere. I mean, just they've got cords, extension cords, with another extension cord, and a rug maybe on top of that cord, walking on top of the wires. Is that safe?
It is not safe. Extension cords, especially frayed extension cords up under your carpet, especially around the holidays. We see this mainly around Christmas time. People, you know, running the lights, running the Christmas tree, and they have a lot of extension cords, and they will catch on fire. But we like to tell people, you know, only at least one cord per outlet, you know, and also we like to tell them to make sure they are not, you know, up under carpets. And then also the loose carpeting is a tripping hazard for our elderly people.
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, our elderly people, we like to tell them, you know, not to have any carpeting around, because, you know, they step on it, especially on these hardwood floors, and they'll fall. And once the elderly person breaks a hip, it's hard to recover.
Absolutely. You know, I've seen that many years. Many never, they become what you call disabled. They can't get around, can't function as well once you break one hip. Let's talk just a little bit about the stairs.
Well, if people have stairs, they should be well lit. They should also have some kind of carpet, or some kind of, you can go to some of your local hardware stores and buy a tread. That way, if you have your socks on, or you're just walking up the stairs, it'll give you some kind of footing, some kind of grip. Because we do have a lot of people that fall down the stairs, you know, can't see, and they also should have hand railings.
Let's talk in general about when you're going into a home and it's well lit, and you have more people in their home and they decide to have a barbecue. Because I've seen things like this when people catching a fire. Let's start with the kitchen. I've seen older people reach their hands and they're cooking and their sleeves are too long, or the clothes may be flammable.
Well, we like to tell people when they're cooking to have not tight fitted, but close fitted clothing on, not to have loose bathrobes on, because we had an incident in the city of Birmingham recently where a lady was frying chicken. You know, her bathrobe was loose fitting, it got caught in the grease, and it burned all the way up, and she couldn't get it off fast enough. We took her to the hospital, and then she later perished. So we like to tell people, make sure your clothing is not loose fitting when you're cooking, especially frying. And, you know, we have a lot of elderly people that have, you know, their favorite silk robes on, the silk robes, the long, you know, flannel robes. But we like to tell you to don't have loose fitting clothing on, or dangly jewelry. You know, you have a lot of people that like to dangle, you know, that'll heat up as well and burn, if serious burns.
What about barbecuing? You know, because, you know, we take that gasoline. What's the stuff we use?
Lighter fluid.
Lighter fluid, not gasoline, you all. Don't use gasoline, okay? Use lighter fluid. We'll take that and we'll skirt it, and it goes.
When you barbecuing, a lot of people don't realize you need to be at least 7 to 14 feet away from the house. I've seen a lot of people barbecue, especially in apartments, on the deck. That's not good, because what happens is a film that gets on the actual awning, and it actually is an accelerant. So the next time you barbecue and you know, squirt your lighter fluid or whatever, and it ignites that film that's set up for months at a time, it can all just ignite, catch the whole apartment on fire. Now you got not just one family that's in danger, you got a whole community.
I read something about a fire prevention tip. One of the tips was to remove the toasters, to unplug them, maybe get them out the way, the coffee makers. We leave all this stuff plugged in usually in the home. Why are they saying maybe disconnect those things when not in use?
You want to make sure you disconnect anything that can be plugged in that's non-essential, especially when you leaving the house, because like I said, the electrical fire, those things are still being charged, and you want to make sure if you have any kind of electrical issues, either with the appliance itself or in your household, when you leave the house, you don't want to leave it plugged in, because it's still an energized electrical appliance.
Hey, we're in the home today of Loretta Scott, and we're going to be going through her home. I want you to actually show us what you're talking about. I actually want you to go to the sockets. I actually want you to go to the kitchen, and we're going to look around and do a home inspection right here on the Caregiving Doctor Show today. Don't go away. That's great information. You don't want to miss it. We'll be back in a minute.
Around the winter months, it gets cold, and some of our elderly people have older space heaters like this one. This is the space heater. The main thing that I'm noticing right off the top, it doesn't have a tip-over switch. A tip-over switch is basically a switch that if the space heater is tipped over on the floor, it'll immediately cut itself off. So we see that one, and I think this one is a newer one. It's still kind of older, and it doesn't have one as well. But you want to have one with any kind of mechanism. If it tips over, that it cuts itself off. Also, we want to say what we call the 3-foot rule. So it has to be 3 feet away from the wall, 3 feet away from anything that basically can burn. So, you know, you think about the way you measure stuff is by feet. I wear about a size 11.5 shoe, so almost a foot. So 1, 2, 3. That's 3 feet. You know, so you want to make sure it's 3 feet away from anything can burn. You know, you have fabrics like this sofa here, or even a structure like this sheetrock here that the wall is made of. You want to make sure it can't burn. Especially when you leave out of a house, you want to make sure your space heater is unplugged. If you leave that space, unplug the space heater. You know, that's a rule of thumb. Also, you want to make sure the cords aren't frayed. You know, this cord right here is frayed. See that? We want to make sure your cords aren't frayed. That can be a danger as well. There's a lot of this space heater requires a lot of circuits, so you want to make sure that its electricity is not, you know, overwhelming to the cord. Also, you want to make sure when you plug in a space heater or any other appliance in, that the wall socket is intact. You know, that's one of the third leading cause of fires in the home is probably electrical fires, so you want to make sure this is a big problem. This is a safety hazard. You have a frayed cord, a rug, which is, you know, obviously flammable, sit on top of the cord like this, and then right there you have a fire. Even though, so imagine if this was plugged in and you have sprayed and you have electrical current going through here, then you got an automatic fire.
Take a look at this smoke alarm here. I don't see a light.
Yeah.
Should there be a light on? Is it working?
I don't. It is a testing spray you can buy from hardware stores that you can spray and see if your smoke alarm is working. We suggest you test your smoke alarm once a month. All smoke alarms, whether they're hardwired or they're battery powered, all of them should have some kind of battery. The battery, in case if it's hardwired, if your lights go out, then the battery is going to kick it in. It should be a light up there that you can see and there's no light on this one. So I'm gonna assume, and we always gonna assume the worst, that the smoke alarm is not working. So, if you elderly person, if you can't get a chair or a ladder and mash the button, or don't have anybody to mash your testing button, I would suggest that you get a spray. They sell them at hardware stores, probably, $8 to $10, but it's worth it because, if you're testing it once a month, you just squirt a little bit and it acts as a smoke and it can test the alarm, but it's safe. Don't get a match. I see people light paper, get matches, and try to really put smoke under it because you don't know, what that smoke can be detrimental, especially for elderly people, to their health. It could actually ignite something else, and then you got a real problem. Smoke alarms should be by every sleeping area, either in the hallway or actually inside of that sleeping area. Inside the room or in the hallway, outside the room. Our latest NFPA standards tell us that it should be inside and outside the room now. So they change kind of every year, but you want to be as safe as possible. They also should be on every floor of your house. So if you have one bedroom up here and she had 2 downstairs, you want to at least have one smoke alarm that covers this bedroom and at least one that covered the bedrooms downstairs. But they actually suggest that you have one in and outside your sleeping area now. People think they have to have smoke alarms in the kitchen. What happens, you have what they call a nuisance alarm. So every time you cook, every time you fry, that smoke alarm goes off. You get so tired of it, you might get a broom, hit it off the wall, you might get the battery, take it out, and what happens? When you finish, you forget to replace that smoke alarm, you forget to put the battery back in. If something happens, now your smoke alarm doesn't work. So you want to make sure you do not have them in the kitchen. If you have them in the kitchen, have them removed out of the kitchen. She has one that's under the cabinet.
Is that where it should be?
No. One reason, because it's under the stove. So let's imagine we had a fire right here in this stove area. If you have a fire blazing up and your fire extinguisher is under the cabinet, but the fire's blazing up, how are you going to go into the fire, get your fire extinguisher out, bag up, and then come back in? I suggest that your fire extinguisher hang here, right as you enter the kitchen, right outside your kitchen, or either in your bedroom. So if you smell fire, you have it already equipped in your bedroom with it. The chemical that's inside of here is ammonium phosphate. And it's a chemical that it will expire. Most of your extinguishers, they are good for about 10 years, and a lot of them have the date. This one actually seems a little older. They'll have a date somewhere here or either on the bottom. I don't really see one on this one, but most of them should be dated. If not on here, they would be on the box. So you want to make sure that it's at least 10 years old. You want to make sure that you check. This is called your gauge. You want to make sure this little yellow gauge here is in the green, not in the red, or not past the green. If it is, just toss it. These right here are your disposable extinguishers. You can tell the difference by the nozzle here. If it's plastic, most of the time you can dispose of them. You can go to your local hardware store and get you a new one. Probably, this one here is probably about $20. Fire extinguishers are just for ancillary stage fires. That means small fires inside of a skillet, inside of a small garbage can. And I like to tell people to remember their small acronym is PASS, P-A-S-S. That simply means the P is pour the pin. The A is for aim the nozzle. It may not look like this. It may have a longer nozzle with a cone on it. Either way, it works the same way. Aim. The A is for aim. The S is for squeeze. And when you're squeezing the handle and the lever. And then sweep. You want to sweep at the base of the fire, sweep from side to side. You want to make sure it's a slow, steady sweep. Fire extinguishers don't last that long. A one this size will probably last you about 8 seconds. But guess what? That's all you need to put out a fire. If it's something you need longer than that, then you don't need to be fighting, okay? So always get your 911 system activated, even if it's something small, and you put it out because you don't know. It might be, you might have fire in your ceiling. It might be, in the hood of your stove, in your cabinetry areas. You want to make sure you get the 911 system started.
We talked about the sleeves over the stove. We talked about the top. I think you mentioned earlier in the pre-conference about the top. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and one of the big things we like to say is keep your eye on what you fry. One of our biggest issues is frying safety, cooking safety. Unattended cooking fires is the #1 cause of fire in the United States of America. Even attended grease fires is a big cause of fire. We talked earlier about the loose clothing, people frying. I like to tell people, if you're gonna fry, keep your eye on it. Have your little kit. We have a fire extinguisher here. You want to have that handy. You have an oversized lid. And I suggest baking soda. We asked the homeowner earlier, she said she had salt. Well, it's an independent study that I researched, and they use all different type of items in the kitchen. All the, we grew up hearing about flour, throw some flour on it. But you think about it, when you're frying something that's battered, and what burns? It's the flour, it's the battering. So flour will burn. They even tried salsa, everything you would think of, but the #1 agent to put out fires besides the fire extinguisher was baking soda. When you're cooking, if this was flaming, the first thing you want to do, people don't realize, is cut the eye off. Cut where the thing is cooking, you want to cut it off, okay? A lot of people just let it, flare up or whatever you want to cut that off. So if it's still flaming, you want to make sure you grab this oversized lid, you use it as a shield. You want to make sure you come in with it like a shield, that's why it's oversized, then you smother it, okay? If it's still, you got your eye cut off, you do this, it's still flaming, you got your fire extinguisher or baking soda. If you don't have a fire extinguisher, you can always do baking soda. You sprinkle your baking soda. If it's still going, get out. Get out the house, let us do our job as firefighters. Hey, let's say we're using this hot plate. Okay, we leave it plugged in, but we remove our item off the stove. This substance right here is just years and years of use. I mean, it's grease, it's sticky, that's grease. So what'll happen, and grease is flammable. You leave this plugged in, you take your item off the stove, and you go and lay down for the night. This is still plugged in, maybe still warm, left on. You got grease here, it's like a candle, basically. It's gonna ignite, and it's so much grease on here, it's gonna ignite, and it's gonna ignite quickly, and it's gonna be hard to put out. So that's one of the dangers of having older appliances like this. I would suggest that our homeowner would throw this away. Anything left unattended, plugged in, non-essential things like a toaster should be unplugged, simply because it could be frayed there, it could be frayed where it joins with the toaster. Even though you have this toaster's not working, it's still an electrical charge coming through this cord. A lot of people, especially our elderly, have these security doors that only lock, that has a key locking mechanism. The only thing, in the case of emergency, you may know exactly where the key is, but in case of emergency, you're not thinking clearly. A lot of people, fatalities we have in the home fires are right here at the door because they struggle, especially our elderly, with getting this locking mechanism unlatched, and they can't do it, and they succumb to the smoke. So a lot of times you want to make sure if you have a locking mechanism, you have the key inside of the door. And it may not seem safe, but you think about it, you want to keep people from the outside from coming in. So if you have a key and you have it already in the door, it's easier to do that than it is to try to get a key off the ground and pick it up and fumble around with it. And you're already disoriented. It's dark. It's going to be dark. If you have a fire, most of the time it's going to be dark, and you're going to be nervous. Most elderly people, do have burglar bar systems. One of the things first I noticed is not a quick release mechanism on here. A lot of times the newer burglar bars have release mechanisms. So it's actually on the inside of the window. It has a handle here that they can release, but it's on the inside, and the whole burglar bar comes loose. They also have the locking mechanism, just like on the door. You can latch it and it'll come loose. This one right here, the first thing I noticed when I try to open the window, it's painted shut. So that, I like to tell people when they're in the bedrooms to have 2 ways out. you know, now you got one way out, you know, and that's just the door. You know, now even though this door is on the porch, and probably, you know, we can get in this room, the fire department, but we'll have to rip these burglar bars off, and then we'll probably have to break this window to get into her. But how much time is that taking? We're okay here. You got the stairs well lit, you got the handrails, and also you have the treading. You know, you see this at the end here. This, you know, allows you to have a little bit of grip here. So an elderly person, especially coming down the stairs with their socks on, they do have they can secure themselves on the hand railing, and also have the rougher stairs so that they won't slip and fall. Especially with your gas hot water heaters, you want to make sure you have no kind of anything sitting about, almost like you do with your space heaters. You want to make sure you give it a couple of feet away, because you know you can have, if your gas water heaters have pilot lights that stay on all the time. You want to make sure that it won't ignite anything. Make sure that you check your hot water heater, especially on your older homes. This actually is a newer one, but I've been in older homes, and hot water heaters probably are older than I am.
Captain Brian Harrell, you've given some great information today on the Caregiving Doctor Show. We've done a home inspection. Give me 3 summary tips. What are 3 things that we absolutely need to know? And that's pretty much for every home, not just for older people.
Mm-hmm. Well, we like to say it's 3 main tips. We like to say that smoke alarms are the first line of defense, so make sure you have a working smoke alarm in your home. The second line of defense are fire extinguishers. Make sure you have a fire extinguisher. Make sure you know how to use the fire extinguisher. The third being, have 2 ways out. If anything happens, you want to have, most of the time it's either going to be a window and a door, or 2 windows, 2 doors, with 2 ways out of your home.
Right, and he talked about the cooking, so don't forget about the cooking and the frying and your clothing when you're cooking as well. We just want you to be safe, because this show is all about you being safe and taking care of those who may be not able to get out of a home. You're gonna come back and see me?
Oh yeah, anytime.
I'm gonna hold you to that now.
Okay, no problem.
All right. Thank you for joining us today on the Caregiving Doctor Show. I'm Clarissa Fell Smith, and now remember now, I'm caring for you and your loved ones too. See you next week.
The Caregiving Doctor Show is brought to you by the Caregiving Kids Academy, Little Leaders, Big Hearts, Lewis Harper Jr. and the Harper Agency, Sandra's Clothes Closet, Caregiving International Church, and the Caregiving Kids book series. Join us next week for another informative Caregiving Doctor Show.